Ready to go. Let's go, man. Let's get this game started, bro.
Get the game started. Blow the whistle. Show the world. Let's go tonight.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, dude?
I'm doing good, man. Unfortunately, not live with you, which that'll be, at this point, this release, you've already done it, but
yes,
I have to work at 6 a.m. the next 2 days, so it's impossible for me to be up at a 10:30 stream and go to, like midnight. It's just not going to happen. So Here we are.
Yeah, that would be a little insane. I mean, I wake up at like 7 in the morning all the time, but that's a whole hour, You have to be to work at 6, you're saying? So you would have to get up at like 4:30? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
basically.
Yeah, gross. All right, well, yeah, so I went live yesterday by the time you see and hear this. I don't know how it went yet because it hasn't happened. Time is weird. But we are here to talk about the NFC West tonight. For the first time in a while. I know we went through on our Friday fixes and we got to a couple of NFC West teams, but it's been a few weeks, so we're excited to go through our Burnin question segment for them. And we're also going to be talking through the zero running back strategy. A lot of people are implementing it in Scott Fishbowl, so I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the strategy behind some of the different ways to draft. So we'll be doing that. But first, make sure you guys check out thecutffb.com, get it bookmarked. We've got a lot of good stuff coming out, and we are excited about that. Also, we have another podcast, The Coach Approach, that we'll be launching here in the next couple of weeks. Again, I'm meeting with them this week. I said that last week, but things got pushed back a little bit. Both of us are in a 32-team Dynasty IDP league now, thanks to me. And so we're drafting that. We're drafting Scott Fishbowl. We're drafting another one. And so between all of our drafts, it got a little hectic, but we're excited for the new shows. There will be more announcements on that front. So just stay tuned on Twitter at thecutffb. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. This is where, if you're watching us, it's because you're on YouTube. If you're listening to us, it's on your favorite podcast app. So make sure you subscribe wherever you listen, or go to YouTube and watch us. Look at our ugly faces. Randy, how's your Scott Fishbowl draft going?
It's a bit hectic.
Yeah.
Mainly because I know we're talking zero RB today, but I definitely went zero wide receiver strategy. And I like how it's shaken out. It's just now I'm at the point where I need to, for the finish of this, take a couple big shots at running back to try and nail the RB4 of my team, basically.
Okay. What's your favorite pick so far?
My favorite pick so far, I'm going to just stick with somehow getting Josh Allen at 106.
Yeah.
But
that would be my favorite too.
Quick run through Josh Allen, George Kittle. This is round by round. Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa, Brandon Cooks, Chase Claypool, Robbie Anderson, Will Fuller. So complete all heavy upside wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1 potential guys. Followed up Irv Smith for my backup tight end, Jacoby Myers for safety, Justin Tucker to be one of the best kickers with the kicking scoring. I thought that was kind of important. Paris Campbell, same kind of upside. The upside running back I have so far for RB4 is Ty Johnson, who Christian and Jeff have just been pestering me about for about a month. And then I just drafted Traquan Smith for probably my last receiver. So got 4 more rounds. Yeah, that was round 17. I'm about to pick, I think. So hopefully I can finish strong here and be done tomorrow.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm about to have my 16th round pick. My team right now, my quarterbacks are Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, and Cam Newton. My running backs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, David Johnson. That's it. Wide receivers right now, Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Henry Ruggs, Traquan Smith. I think I'm going to stick to that. I think I'm just going to smash a couple of kickers here with my last few picks, and then I'm going to get some tight ends, might take a flyer on some random quarterback just in case.
Yeah, agreed. I'm done with receiver. I have enough, and I have 3 with all week 14 bye, but it's none of my top 3 or 4, so I'm not mad about it. It's just I got to finish now. Done with them.
And then my 2 tight ends, Robert Tonyan and Rob Gronkowski. So I know Gronk is falling. I think it's because O.J. Howard's coming back. But also, I mean, this is redraft, guys. Gronk probably should have went much higher, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he went too high last year. It's probably people going back to the norm of where he should have went. But, I mean, it's not as good as my tight ends, but you also didn't pick one ultra early, so.
It's true. Yeah.
Probably saved yourself there, unfortunately, for myself.
Yes. No, I mean, I wish I was going to pick Waller, but I got sniped. So
yeah, I know. And we do pick from different spots. So having like a third of our team the same is kind of crazy.
It's pretty strange. Yeah.
I don't understand how that's happened, but that's fine.
It's how things normally go with us, though. All right. That'll do it for our Scott Fishbowl talk. I know a lot of you that listen are in Scott Fishbowl. For those of you that aren't, just remember that it's not the end of the world. The applications for Scott Fishbowl 12 are already out. You can put your name in. I have not done so. I need to. But
I think, I'm pretty sure I just clicked submit me for the next one. So
that might be, that might be a route I could go. I should go. I need to go do that when we're done here. But so and if you got into the satellite, again, I said this last week, I think you are still in Scott Fishbowl. The whole point is that it's a charity league, and the satellite, we were ecstatic to be in it last year.
Yep.
And our buddy Jeff, he won the satellite last year. I did not know that until last week. So he's apparently good at fantasy. That's
Who knew?
Who knew? All right, let's talk about the NFC West. Our burning question segment is going to go very, very similar to how it has in the past. 3 questions per team. We will go through all 3. We will answer all 3, and we will talk about all 4 teams in the division. And tonight we are starting with the Arizona Cardinals. The 3 questions for the Arizona Cardinals is Chase Edmonds worth the risk? Where will he finish in terms of running backs in 2021? Is Kyler going for 4,000 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing? And then the third question, how does A.J. Green and Rondale Moore, how do they impact the target share in Arizona? Randy, first question, is Chase Edmonds worth the risk at his current ADP, which I have it pulled up. He is currently being drafted at RB27. So he finished as RB25 in PPR last year, but do you think he is worth the risk? Where do you have him finishing?
Oh, boy. When I try to quickly scroll.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Good. I'm trying to get the points. There we go. Okay.
Randy is currently sifting through his
I have him at 22. Okay. I think he is worth the risk. I also don't have like a ton of faith in like James Conner for really doing much. Obviously, they brought him in to kind of be the change of pace power back. And I do think he robs a lot of touchdowns, so it does kind of handcuff Chase's upside to be running back 1, but I still think he's going to be a solid running back 2 for a team, and that's where he's being drafted. So,
yeah, I have Chase Edmonds at RB22 as well, which is just stupid. No, I like Chase Edmonds a lot this year. I put out a tweet that I was asking how I should watch some more football games because I want to watch these teams prior to training camp and throughout training camp. And I started with the Cardinals. I was just going to go alphabetically, and I put on the tape, and Chase Edmonds is a really good football player. He is able to catch the ball downfield. He's basically a more expensive Nyheim Hines, except I think he gets more of the rushing workload this year. I don't recall how many carries I gave him, but in PPR leagues, I mean, this is a dude you should absolutely be targeting, and we'll probably maybe get to talk about him here in a little bit with our zero running back strategy, because I think being drafted at RB27, I'm actually shocked by that, but I do think that you can find him in the later, like 5th, 6th, 7th, sometimes in drafts. And so I think he's a stud. I really do. I think he is going to get more work than James Conner. And so, yes, I think he's worth the risk.
Yeah, for me, he's clearly going to outpace Conner. I have it somewhat close, and you do too, rush attempts, but that's fine. I mean, we've seen multiple running backs through history, and we have another one in Austin Eckler doing it right now, where he's barely leading or behind even in a combined carry total of the rest of the running backs, and still absolutely dominating. I don't think Chase can get to that point, but I do think he dominates the touches here. It's just the offensive line improvements and wide receiver improvements give them enough reason to run the ball more.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, the other thing that I noticed about that offense is that it's not good. I feel kind of bad for Kyler Murray. As I guess how much of a genius Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be, which for whatever reason, I don't think he ever was that, but they just run spread, and they sometimes do a little play action, drop back, but otherwise it's just DeAndre Hopkins running out to the left side of the field. And then you're hoping that Kyler can hit Rondale Moore underneath, which is a good segue into the third question. And then we'll come back for the Kyler talk. Third question, AJ Green and Rondale Moore, how are they going to impact the target share? How do you have that playing out in 2021, Randy?
Here, let me go, because we do have the target share projections. So, I do have Hopkins' target share coming slightly down, but still at like 28%. I think he is the clear focal point of the offense. I just think after him, we're going to see a complete spread of targets. I think it won't be as much of a AJ Green project like the Bengals did where they forced targets, but I still think he gets probably above 80. I think Kirk does as well. Rondale will probably dominate past then, but they have legitimately 6 receivers, maybe even 7 that should probably touch the field. I don't know if they're all that good, but for where they drafted them and how they could be used, they should. Maybe by the end of the year, maybe Rondale Moore makes Indy Isabella just a non-factor and he loses snaps. But this is a team that has tried for 2 years now to run 4 receiver sets, and we're never able to. They're definitely going to be able to now with those 2 coming in. And I think both have a pretty big impact on the offense, but mainly just taking away from everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't love how many targets I gave AJ Green, which is less than what he got last year, but I also have him playing about the same amount of games. I have him 1 game less. I gave him 84 targets, and I think that they wanted Andy Isabella to be in the role that AJ Green is going to play, which is very strange to think about, right? So Andy Isabella pretty much ran go routes within that offense because they had Christian Kirk to play underneath, DeAndre Hopkins in the intermediate areas, and then Larry Fitz obviously doing Larry Fitz things still. AJ Green is just going to run deep, and we saw it last year. He sucks. I think he sucks now. I have him being a little bit better.
Well, he's a shell of himself, and to say he sucks is just kind of saying how good he was before all these injuries. I think that's more.
That's true. Yeah, that's probably more fair.
Trying to be correct to how his actual talent level, not just the fantasy output.
Well, and the thing with AJ Green last year is you could tell he was very disengaged. He did not want to really play there. I don't think he really got along with Zach Taylor. I think it's going to be a little different this year. He was able to choose where he was playing, And so I think he's going to be a little bit more motivated. I have his catch percentage coming up, but I have his target share coming way down from what it was in Cincinnati, just for the sheer fact there are a lot of mouths to feed. I have him at 13% of the target share, but I also am someone who thinks DeAndre Hopkins keeps his target share for as long as Kingsbury's there, because I don't think Kingsbury is good enough to scheme open the other guys. Whereas Rondale Moore, I gave him an immediate target share higher than AJ Green, because that's where Cliff is actually pretty good and getting people in motion and using them on pop passes or using them in the screen game. That's the offense that they have. And I think Rondale immediately takes that Christian Kirk role. Christian Kirk, I still have him being fairly productive. They're going to pass a lot. And even though the offensive line got better, I just don't see a ton of rushing attempts for this team. And so comparatively, I mean, I still have them at getting more rush attempts than last year, but I think their pace is going to be even higher. I think they're going to run more plays. So
yeah, well, and I mean, let's be just plain simple. Another game means pretty much everyone's going to throw more and pass more than they did last year. That's just how that's going to work.
Yeah, for sure. Unless they're like drastic changes. For example, I think Pittsburgh, which we talked about, I think Pittsburgh probably comes down or stays about the same because they passed at such a high rate last year. And so that's a team that you can kind of project that way. But the Cardinals, they have no reason not to throw the ball, other than Kyler Murray's not great at doing so.
Well, and their best running back thrives in the passing game. So it just
very true.
Adds to it more. And James Conner's not bad in it.
Yeah. No, James Conner's actually fairly good at catching passes as well. Okay. Our second question, Kyler Murray, 4,000, 1,000. Do we see that as a potential outcome for Kyler in 2021? And then do you actually have that as the outcome in your projections?
I don't have it as in my projections. I do think it's within the realm of possibility. Honestly, I think he gets 4,000 yards passing, no doubt now. It's just, can he get to 1,000 yards rushing? And I have him at like 850, which means, I mean, one big run plus a couple more runs than maybe I projected, or a slightly higher yard per carry, and he's going to be really, really close. I mean, I could see it happening, especially if he plays a full season. I think either him or Lamar's going to do it.
Yeah, I don't have it happening because as much as I say that Kyler Murray is not a very good passer, which he's not, if you watch him play, he still airmails balls. The reason his completion percentage is so high is because of that screen game, of that pop pass game. Like I said, he's really, really nervous to throw the ball across the middle. Even when he throws it downfield, he's throwing it to the outside to DeAndre Hopkins. Is that a product of the offense? Probably. Like I said, Cliff Kingsbury sucks. But that's a long way of me saying I do think he's going to be a little better throwing the football in 2021. And then that means that his rushing does come down just a touch. I have him at the same amount of rushing touchdowns, but I do have his yards per carry coming down just ever so slightly. So he sits around the 900 range. I think it is an outcome that could happen, though. Say Kyler Murray doesn't get better at passing the ball and he decides to scramble. He very well has the ability to hit 1,000 yards. He probably could have last year if he was healthy.
I would say he played pretty much 15. I know he technically played 16, but I'd say he played pretty much 15, and he could run at about 12.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been done last year, but it didn't. So here we are. And the extra game he should have hit 4,000 last year passing. He's clearly going to do it this year. It's just the biggest question because it's never happened. And it just feels like now that we have that extra game, one of him and Lamar is going to do it. Who's going to be the first person? Yeah.
Yeah. If I had to bet, it'd be Lamar, but it could be Kyler too.
I think I would too, because I think the 1,000's harder than the 4,000.
Yeah, that's true. Although Lamar only passes for like 3,200 yards a year. So That's the difference, I think.
But best targets ever now. Come on. Obviously, 77,000 passing yards. Come on, guys.
I am someone who thinks they pass more, but
obviously.
We already talked about the Ravens. Last question on the Cardinals, a bonus question. Do you think they're a playoff team?
Yeah, but I also thought they were a playoff team last year. I think they've improved.
Yeah. Same. That's how I felt as well. And they were only a game away from being in the playoffs.
They should have been in. They literally just shit the bed.
Yeah. I think they are a playoff team. I think 3 playoff teams come from this division, which is fun.
Yeah, and that's what we thought. It was literally, we thought San Francisco, Seattle, and the Cardinals all were going to make it. Just, because of injury, it wasn't a possibility.
Yeah.
And I think we're back on the saddle with that take again.
Except it could honestly be 4 with that extra team. Because
it could not.
Could it? No, it couldn't. You're right. There's only how many wild cards are there?
There's
3.
Well, there's 3. It's possible. It's just not going to happen.
They would have to all sweep their non-division games. Yeah, it's definitely not going to happen. All right, second team that we're going to talk about is the Los Angeles Rams. The 3 questions for the Rams. Matthew Stafford is in. Is that enough to win or at least go to a Super Bowl? Realistic Cam Akers projection / finish. And when I say realistic, I truly mean realistic, not fantasy Twitter realistic. And then which wide receiver are you targeting now that Stafford's there? We know what it was with Jared Goff, but do you think it's going to be the same, or do you think it flips? Is there a guy not named Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods that you have interest in, etc.? So first question, is Matthew Stafford enough for a Super Bowl?
For me, this year it's a no. And it's the question because they have built a 2 to 3 year window now that they have to get back to the Super Bowl. And their mind, the reason they didn't win was, being outcoached, clearly, but also Goff couldn't put them over the next level when they couldn't move the ball, running the ball against the Patriots. So now they have Stafford here. They think he's the savior, which he very well could be. And there's no disrespect to Stafford ever on this show, trust us. But I'm going to go no because, they didn't have draft picks. And when the draft picks they had, they pretty much shit the bed on. So I just have no hope in that regard. I don't think their offensive line improved, really. Maybe their defense can help carry them again. But it's going to be one of those things where I think they're a playoff team, the caliber of a playoff team with a Stafford edition. I won't put him in that contender echelon.
Yeah, I think that their defense is actually their defense actually got worse. They lost their slot corner and they lost their stud safety, right? They have replacements for that.
They pretty much lost the entire secondary, not named Ramsey.
Yeah, it's not great. And so I don't think a lot of people are factoring that part in because, of course, when you talk about fantasy football, you don't always consider things like that. But I think Matthew Stafford at face value would be enough to make them a contender if they play at the same level on defense that they did when Jared Goff was able to get them to a Super Bowl. However, because I don't think the defense does that, I don't think that this is a Super Bowl bound team. I do think that I agree with you. I think they're a playoff caliber team. I think Stafford definitely opens up what McVay wants to do with this team. I just don't think that the division's tough, man. There's a real
it's a bad division to be in.
Yeah, there's a real chance they win one game out of the 6 division games.
Yeah, it's not one. It is kind of one of those divisions, just like the AFC North, where everyone kind of splits.
Yeah.
So maybe that does help that cause, but
yeah, no, it's fair. And again, there is no Stafford hate on this podcast because we love Matthew Stafford. However, I can't see it. I cannot see it. So, question 2, realistic Cam Akers finish for 2021, I understand the dynasty appeal. I understand why everyone thinks that Cam Akers is the second coming of Jesus. But Randy, where do you have him finishing? And then I guess what would you have his ceiling being?
Okay, I have him as RB17 in our projections, and that's with some very, very good stats. I think he can maybe like RB8. I would give him as like an absolute ceiling. And with saying that, his draft price isn't necessarily terrible, but I mean, for him to be RB8, they are going to have to give him like the absolute lion's share of the work. And I do think that Darrell Henderson does get a good amount of work, close to what he got last year. And that was with Cam Akers not playing in 4 games and also not really being a part of the offense to start. I do think Cam gets most of the work. It's just Henderson's he's a huge part of this team. And if he wasn't banged up when Cam got his chance, would Cam actually have gotten his chance? That's a question we'll never know. And it's Cam's team now, but that doesn't mean Henderson doesn't have a key role. And because of that, it pigeonholes him. But I have him getting like 279 rushes and like 33 catches. I mean, that's good numbers. It's just there's a lot of good running backs.
Yeah. There are. I'm trying to see. So I gave him a 56% market share, or of the rush attempts. So I have him out carrying everyone on this roster, and I have him at RB23. I have him. I don't know that Cam Akers is the goal line back. I projected it that way, but I also have Darrell Henderson getting 4 touchdowns this year. I have Cam Akers getting 8. I think that Matthew Stafford could very well throw I have him for 32. I think that number might be low. I think Matthew Stafford could very well throw for 36, 37, 38 touchdowns. I would not be shocked. Cam Akers, he's being drafted in the first round of fantasy football drafts this year. And because of that, I think it's going to be framed that like us having him at 17 and 23 respectfully. I think we're going to be framed as Cam Akers haters, but I don't think Cam Akers is prime Todd Gurley, guys. I really don't, and everyone else does.
Yeah.
He's not though.
Even if he was, I don't think they're giving him prime Todd Gurley workload, which was part of the reason Todd Gurley was that. Exactly. I think they realized they paid Todd Gurley, they ran him into the fucking ground, and he died, basically. I mean, that's literally they had to let him go, and he did okay with the Falcons. Now he can't be signed, basically, because no one wants him until someone gets hurt, obviously. But I think they are going to give Cam – I have him getting like 59% of the total rushes, 65% of the RB touches, running, obviously. Yeah. And I think that's fair, and that gives Henderson, I think it's got to be at least like, wow, it had to be at least like 30 something, like 34%. Like, I didn't give much workload to Xavier Jones, so I think that's a fair split for him getting most of the work for the running backs and still coming short on expectations, because RB11 is what Fantasy Pros has him as, 15th overall. I'm passing unless I desperately think I need a running back at the turn or something.
Yeah, I'd pass too, because furthering that, the receiving workload I gave him was over double what he got last year, and it's only 38, and that is not RB1 level targets unless you're Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb, and I don't think Cam Akers is either one of those guys. So. No,
and like I said, I'm at 33 catches, so not far behind you. Stafford doesn't check the ball down.
No,
and if he does, it's probably. I mean, it probably would be to Cam, but I mean, let's be real. Between Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and the tight end, someone's going to be within 5 to 7 yards. He's probably not throwing the running back. And Stafford will test the ball downfield more. So
Yes. Yeah, and that's what they want to do. Like he's going to be challenged to do that. So, yeah, I'm out on Cam Akers this year at his ADP. Nope. All right. You talked about Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp there, so that's a good segue into which wide receiver are you targeting for 2021? Do you think outside of those two, there's a guy that you would want to have on your team?
No, not necessarily, and it's because of the signing of Deshaun Jackson. I think if he didn't get brought in, I would have some leeway with Van Jefferson taking over like a deep shot role. But because they're both there, I think Deshaun, obviously, I don't think he plays all season, which is fair, but I would just stick to the top two and then probably Higbee at a later tight end value.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of probably unwarranted interest in Jacob Harris. I think Tyler Higbee probably loses his job by the end of the year based on everything I've read about this kid. Jacob Harris, I studied Jacob Harris just a little bit before the draft, and I said, this kid sucks. He's bad. But then he moved to tight end, and like the things he was doing were bad for a wide receiver. His size advantage and his athleticism are good for a tight end. And so I have a sneaky bit of interest in him. I only have him averaging like 6 fantasy points per game, but I could very well see a chance at more because I also have Higbee averaging a fair amount. But other than that, I think Woods is still the guy, right?
Yeah, Kupp has been the guy, but he's the one with the top 10 finish. I think it's Woods this year. I have him as wide receiver 16 to Kupp's 24. I do think it's still pretty close. I mean, that's outrageous for both to be that high, obviously. But of the two, Woods would be the deep threat, and he's the more versatile one. They're about the same age, so the age is not a concern there. But I would feel more comfortable with Woods, basically.
Yeah, I have Robert Woods at wide receiver 9, so
sure.
I'm a psychopath, and I have Kupp at 28. So
yeah, that's what I'm trying to see. Woods is being drafted 43rd overall, wide receiver 17.
Smash that.
Where is Cooper Kupp?
Undrafted.
He's dead. No, he's wide receiver 21. So I'm pretty close on both of them. Obviously, Fantasy Pros likes, or ADP right now, it's not even Fantasy Pros. They like Cooper Kupp a little bit better than I do. Again, I just don't see both being top 15 ever again. Yeah, and I would pick Robert Woods.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, on to our third team. We are going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks. The 3 questions: is a Gerald Everett breakout incoming? Is Russ going to cook, or is Carson going to feast? And then record expectations for the Seattle Seahawks. They made the playoffs last year. People forget, but it's time to remember that Seattle somehow makes the playoffs every freaking year, no matter what. Doesn't matter what happens, they're going to be there. But Gerald Everett, is he going to play a role in that? Is the breakout incoming, Randy? What say you?
I think it's so bad. I do love Gerald Everett, but I don't have it as like this ultra valuable tight end breakout, and it's because of Disley, really. It's like not even a disrespect to him, and it's not like I'm pretty sure you have Disley getting more work than I do. It's just they haven't historically thrown the tight end except in the red zone an enormous amount. I do have them, like I have Everett barely getting more work than last year, and I think they run the ball more, so because of that, I have Everett finishing as like a tight end 2. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's probably a tight end 20. It's not even like I have him 45 catches, 450, 6 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty good for a tight end, and it just isn't helped. And if Disley isn't healthy, I think that number jumps up probably 55, 60 catches, and then the tight end breakout could be a possibility. I just don't think he can truly break out in this offense with how much talk they've had about getting geared back more towards the run, being more even, not like how they were dominating to start last year. So, great coaching.
Yeah. It's so bad. So I agree. I actually have Everett and Disley eating into each other too much to even have any relevance. I think you're going to see a couple of tight end 1 weeks. I think you could see a tight end 1 week or two out of Will Disley too, though. Will Disley and Gerald Everett play vastly different roles. I think Disley's going to be used as like a out of 12 personnel. He's going to be the guy running the go route from in line, and Russ loves that route. Russ loves Will Disley. And so if he's able to stay healthy and get on the field, granted, like he only had 29 targets last year, I understand, but he wasn't fully healthy in every single game. And they had Greg Olsen on the field for a lot of those games. So I think Everett is going to be a stud at some point, but it might not be when Will Disley is there. So we'll see. I have their combined target share at 15%. I think they're going to heavily involve tight ends this year. So I don't know. Question 2. You kind of alluded to your answer to question 2. Is Russ going to cook, or is Chris Carson going to feast? Now, I say that with the notion that Carlos Hyde was the guy there. He is gone. Rashad Penny is there. Travis Homer is there. DJ Dallas is there. So Chris Carson is the only one there, is what I'm saying. Do you think Russ is going to throw a ton like they did, or are they going to go back to running?
So it's just kind of a catch-22 answer for me, because I do have Russ obviously throwing more times than he did last year with the extra game. But I have them increasing their run plays about 4%. They were about like 41, 42. I'm like 46-ish % on the run pass. And that's just their game. Sometimes they're down and they throw completely. So it's just how it works with them. I do have Russ, like I said, throwing a bit more, but I have his numbers down.
Okay. That's probably fair. I kept it fairly consistent. I have his yards per completion actually higher this year because I think DK takes a step up. I have his touchdown percentage coming down because his touchdown percentage has been unsustainable since he came into the league, and at some point that bitch has to come down. It's gotta. He's so good though. And I have I have Russ throwing 49 more times. So I do have that actually them sticking to more of Russ cooking than Chris Carson feasting. However, I still think Chris Carson's going to feast. I think this offense is going to be pretty freaking good with the rookie wide receiver additions. I think that's pretty much it, right? Dwayne Eskridge.
Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett's the addition.
I think Dwayne Eskridge is going to have a decent year. I also think Cade Johnson makes the team. Yeah. Well, I have him with very, very similar stats. I actually have Gerald Everett with more fantasy points. So.
For me, I have Wilson throwing 24 more times, so a reasonable amount for another game. So a decrease in the amount of passes per game, pretty much. Completion going down almost over a full point and a half. Touchdown percentage coming from 7.17 to 6.19. Completions 0.2 more. Yards per catch down like half a point, half a yard basically. And
how many fantasy points?
345 total, 20.3 per game, which is down from 351 and 22.
Yeah, I have him up at 385 and 22.7 fantasy points per game. So I think Russ is going to have a better year.
But I have them running. They ran 411 times last year. I have it 475.
That's fair.
I mean, that's as clear as explanation as you can make for that.
Yeah, very true. All right. So with that all being said, what are your expectations for the Seahawks this year. Do you think they're going to keep their streak alive of at least 10 games? I'm pretty sure they've won at least 10 games every year since Pete Carroll took over. So
I think I'd be comfortable saying 10 games right now without like going through schedule and like at least 10 games, I'd say.
Yeah,
obviously as we get probably in the next month or so, we'll do our record predictions and stuff like that. But just saying.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable saying 10 wins this year.
Really?
Not because of the offense, because I do think the offense is better and more efficient. They added to the offensive line, which is really going to help. But I think they got worse on defense, which they tend to do that all the time. So they retained, I think.
Their defense was dog shit. That's my point. Like, did they actually get worse?
And then they lost Shaq Griffin, dude. And so now their number one corner, who is, I can't even think off the top of my head who their number one corner is going to be. It's got to be Richard Sherman, like you said last week.
If they bring it back. I mean, it's another team that, in my opinion, wasted their picks.
Yep.
They had glaring holes. Yeah, I definitely hear the argument that they needed receiver depth, like more upside, because Freddie Swain is their wide receiver 3 right now, without any rookies.
Yeah.
So makes sense. Get it. But it just didn't. I mean, like, trade Rashad Penny for a third or something. Like, dude, like you drafted people that aren't anything. You were undrafted free agents. You drafted a murderer, or you signed a murderer. Like, I mean, we couldn't have got offensive line, couldn't have got defensive help. You just kind of fucked it.
Oh God, yeah, they did sign a murderer.
They did. Well, they cut him though once they found out. In fairness, but
yeah.
I mean, that was
good.
That was one of their like shining off-season moves. That's what I'm saying.
I know people were feeling good about it too, but now we understand. So that event happened in 2018. Now we understand why he wasn't playing at Florida State. I think.
Also, Florida State makes sense.
Yes, it does. All right, let's get on to our.
Jesus.
I know it's bad. All right, let's get on to the San Francisco 49ers. The 3 questions. What week will the Treys become starters together? So Trey Sermon, Trey Lance. When do we think they will start? Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, and then kind of where we have each of them finishing. And then are the 49ers back to Super Bowl contention, assuming full health? Granted, it's tough to assume full health with this team because of, the last 3 years, it feels like. But let's assume it. Let's assume it for that question. So what week will the Treys become starters together?
I believe they're different for us. I have it looks like week 8 would be the time it could happen. And that would make sense with Mostert tweaking his hamstring at that point and Sermon taking over. Let's be clear. Both have a chance to take over week 1. I think that should be fair. Sermon's never going to be a bell cow in this offense. It just won't happen. I do have him getting out-touched by Mostert as of now. Obviously, I wanted to get through camp and everything before that could be moved. But Lance, I truly think Jimmy G gets the start. I think they're winning, and I think we have a Dolphin situation of last year where they're like, okay, I know we're like a playoff team right now with Jimmy G, but like, fuck it. Like, we sold everything for Trey. Like, we can get at the trade deadline a second or a third for Jimmy G. Let's just get this shit done. And I think it makes sense. And he opens up the offense. I think they're running a ton this year. I have their pass attempts going up for obvious reasons, but their rushing attempts going way up.
Yep. I am along the same mindset. I have their pass attempts only coming up 4. Now, the reason for that is they were down a lot last year because their defense was injured. So I think they're going to be able to control games a lot more. And so I think that coming up 4 would be a reasonable jump from like 2019 is how I kind of looked at it. But in terms of when I think the Treys are starting together, I think Trey Sermon plays in every single game this year. I think he's probably the RB2.
Yeah, that's why I worded it that way, though. Like, actual starting, like, okay, we know this is his team and everyone else is a rotation backs.
Yeah, so I would say, week 13 would be when that happens, because I think that's about when you're going to see a Raheem Mostert injury. That's what I would guess. I feel bad saying that, but like it's going to happen.
It's just it's never anything major, and that's fine too. Like, that's running back life. And Mostert, the reason he gets limited touches a game and he does get banged up is because he just runs his fucking ass off, and he's a quick bursty. Like he runs hard, and he's not the biggest back. I mean, he runs like Derrick Henry with speed. With
speed, but also
Josh Jacobs, all those guys that just run into the dirt.
Yeah, he does. And so I would say week 13. I do have Trey Lance starting week. What would that be? Week 10.
10.
Yes. So week 10. I forget what the matchup is, but I think it might have been the Jaguars. I think they play the Jaguars this year. That might be wrong. It was some lucrative matchup. Now, I know the bye week comes, I think, 2 or 3 weeks before then. I think following the bye, it could happen as well. But I do think that they'll give him an extra couple of weeks. And I also will say I don't have Trey Lance very good. I have him having a normal rookie quarterback season, something similar to Tua, and still averaging 17 fantasy points per game because he runs the football, and he's going to be very good at running the football. So. All right. Question number 2, Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel? I think it's as simple as that, but do you think that they both have fantasy relevance this year?
Yeah, I think they both clearly do. I think neither will be a wide receiver 1, but I think both are going to score about the same and be on that wide receiver 2 to 3 cliff, basically. And because of that, I think you take Deebo right now, because he's a massive value then. If they're going to finish close, like I have Deebo catching 2 less balls, and he has got about 20 less yards. He does have 2 less touchdowns, but they're both going to run the ball more double-digit times. They're both probably get a rushing touchdown. I mean, like they're the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it is.
And if you said like Brandon Ayuk is the better version of Deebo, I guess I'd want to see it again this year with both of them on the field, but I can get to that point. But that doesn't mean that now Brandon Ayuk's going to get all of that work. They're still going to use Deebo because it'd be stupid to make one do it all, because then he's going to get hurt. And they're like, well, we'll get the other one. Come on. Why wouldn't you just have both be dominant? Especially when your receiving course ass besides them.
Yeah, they're going to get a lot of work. The problem I would say is, so I said I think they're a low volume passing team. I have them under 600 pass attempts, which if you think about that at this stage with 17 games, under 600 is going to be low no matter what here in the next couple of years. But I have Brandon Ayuk at 14 fantasy points per game. Pretty good. Nice little flex option, I would say. Maybe sometimes wide receiver 2, a few wide receiver 1 weeks. Deebo Samuel at 13.6, I believe. So 13.3, excuse me. So, I have them very, very similar. Like you said, I would still prefer Ayuk because I think Ayuk's ceiling is a little bit higher. And so I can get behind it at that ADP. But if the ADPs are so drastic, I would be okay snagging Deebo.
Well, that's what I'm trying to see it quick for us.
Yeah.
Ayuk is wide receiver 25. I see that already.
Yeah, so I would be technically out on him, but not too far out.
But see, this is my point. I'm still scrolling. Deebo is wide receiver 38. That's my point. I would take Deebo all day of the 2.
Yeah, I would have Deebo at a value. So I have them at wide receiver 30 and wide receiver 34, or 35, I mean. So
it's not awful. It's a passing league now. These receivers are just going to be catching everything. So,
yeah. Okay.
I have them at 26 7 and 34 or 33.
Okay.
Sorry. So, I mean, yeah,
Pretty
definitely
similar.
Yeah.
And also, if you're watching this, pardon my typo on the graphic here. Did this on my phone again. That we're gonna have some typos, guys. I'm sorry. I hate them. I hate them. But if you're watching, it's there. If you're listening, just ignore me. Ignore me. I don't have typos. All right. Last question. Are the San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl contenders? Yes or no?
No. But I it's just because I'm just not I have to see it put together like this, and especially with eventual quarterback change, I'm just gonna have it as playoff caliber team.
Yeah. Think Ravens with Joe Flacco is kind of how I see it. When there was the Flacco to Lamar transition, you could say that the Ravens are borderline Super Bowl contenders now, and they still have the same elite defense they've always had. Yeah. But that's kind of how I view the 49ers too. And I also think Kyle Shanahan's overrated. So we're going to see that put to the test this year. Oh. That's a conversation for another day, though.
Yeah, clearly.
All right. Before we talk about some zero running back, just a quick word from our sponsors. Check out King Fantasy Sports' draft kit and get the advantage over your league mates this draft season. Do the right preparation and start your season off right. You'll get rankings, breakouts, bust values, and sleepers. Have some funky settings? Learn how to make your own projections. Stop sitting on the sidelines and buy it now. Use our promo code THECUT to get an additional 10% off. We're talking $10 to get everything you need in your arsenal to not just compete, but dominate. Check out the link in the description of this podcast episode.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
Use promo code THECUT to get matching deposits up to $50 with a minimum deposit of $20. Thank you to Thrive Fantasy. All right. Still didn't fix that ending there, but that's okay. Shout out to Thrive Fantasy and shout out to the King Fantasy Sports Draft Kit. We will have some more commercials and sponsors for you here soon. We are excited for those. If you guys aren't watching, visual component, worth it. We are live normally every Monday night at 10:30. So I would suggest joining us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. But let's go to our strategizing segment where we talk through zero running back. It's a strategy that's very, very contentious. Everyone argues about it. Not everyone knows what it is. Sometimes I feel like I don't even know what it is because everyone takes it in a certain way. So, Randy, I guess what would you define zero running back as, and then when would you do it? When would you do it?
So the most common way you could say any like zero wide receiver, zero running back is at the earliest you would take the positions that you're saying you're doing zero. It would be like the late 5th round if you're like a late pick. Or most likely 6th round is usually the kind of target point for most people. But if you're at the 12th pick, your difference between 5th round and 6th round is non-existent. So it doesn't matter. And just like that, though, I would only use it if I was at pick like 8, 9, or later. That's the only time I would even consider using zero RB, and I only would consider it during the draft. I would not consider it before the draft. Don't go into your drafts with a full strategy That is dumb. Every draft is different, and your strategy will probably end up screwing you over if you do that.
Yeah. I agree to an extent. Like I go into some drafts with my pick in mind, right?
But see, you have your first round pick in mind.
It's true. Yeah.
That's the thing. If you say, well, I'm taking no running backs this draft, but you have the fourth pick, you're probably losing your league.
It's true.
And
That's true.
if you say I'm not taking a wide receiver till the 6th round, but you have the 10th pick and you're choosing between the RB 10 or the wide receiver 1, maybe you should have had a different strategy.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah. No, I get it. And so I wrote an article for Fantasy Pros that kind of dove into if the wide receiver heavy approach worked. So pretty much the same thing as zero running back, right? So you want wide receiver heavy in the first few rounds. And the answer is it depends. And so it was a very, very difficult article to write because it does depend. You have to make the right pick, even if you pick the right strategy. So if you picked Michael Thomas last year as part of your zero running back strategy, you lost. If you picked Julio Jones, you lost. Like it definitely depends. You still have to hit on your picks. And so like injury things you cannot consider during your draft, but it's something to consider where, like, in my opinion, you see, we talk about how running backs, that's part of the running back position. They get banged up. But I will say, too, a running back's injury normally doesn't linger like a wide receiver's does, right? So wide receivers sometimes can fight through, hamstring injuries or whatever. Oftentimes they can't. And 9 times out of 10, those like high-level running backs aren't going to be out for a certain extent of time. But that's probably beside the point. I agree with you. You shouldn't go into a draft with a set strategy. Now, this isn't me saying that you should value-based draft all the time, because I do think that value-based drafting gets you into trouble if you stick strictly to ADP. But if you have your own values and how you view some of these players, or you rely on a certain site, or you rely on, us to give you guys feedback, shout out to you. But I think that would be the way to go. ADP is not always indicative of true value.
And it's true value to your roster. Just because it's a value at the ADP for a wide receiver, if you have full wide receivers and no running backs, it doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. Randy, how would you say, like, what is the best way to win with a zero running back strategy?
So, I mean, obviously the best way is that you, for the first 4 or 5 rounds, you are absolutely dominating other positions. And let's be perfectly clear, zero RB will and pretty much can only work in full PPR leagues. Just because that extra pass catching value for certain backs will allow you the ability to take shots and get the waiver pickup that you need to really survive at the running back position. Otherwise, at half PPR, you're really, really handcuffing yourself with the strategy for a full 4, 5, 6 rounds. Now, if your first 2 picks, you don't go running back, that's not what this is. It's a different story. You just took your value there. That makes sense. So just completely dominating, getting one of the top 3 tight ends, getting one of the potential top 5 or 6 quarterbacks, if the value is there, making sure you have 3 top 15, top 20 receivers, and you just know you're starting gold every week at wide receiver and tight end. And you're winning all those positions as you make up for and just get good points from your running back position. And you really do need to hit on one top 15 running back, and then the rest kind of don't matter as much. But if you can get 2 if you can get a top 15 and then a top 30, top 25, you're absolutely going to win. Because if you somehow did 0 RB and you got 2 RB1s, you're winning any league. That's not fair. You're in a 5-team league. I don't know what just happened.
Right. No, it's true. And so to your point, in dominating other positions, I think now this is a very, very specific thing, but I think the way to win with zero running back is to draft Travis Kelce or Darren Waller. And the reason I think that is because you're going to get them in probably the second round at this point in drafts. I don't know exactly where they're going, but the positional advantage of having a tight end that performs at wide receiver 1 levels is already going to boost your chances of winning your league, right? So then you follow that up with a couple of guys you think will be wide receiver 1s or wide receiver 2s, and then you kind of, in following that train, then you go ahead and you get a Konami code quarterback of some sort that is able to dominate his position as well. Granted, like, your drafts aren't always going to fall that way. You can't do that every single time. But
yeah, and obviously we're speaking strictly from like ADP reasoning more than anything else. But actually, surprisingly enough, I think maybe because of Scott Fishbowl going on, Kelsey's all the way up at 8 for ADP. I do think that's not a bad pick. I think he's going to be a first-round pick guaranteed this year. So I think he does drop down to probably like 10, 11 by the time we get to late July, August. But, man, it's definitely where he should be drafted because, again, like you said, him, Waller, and respectfully Kittle, when healthy, perform as wide receiver 1s, if not like top 5 wide receivers.
Yeah, I think Hawkinson's going to be in that discussion next year, but I passed on him in Scott Fishbowl like a dummy, and he didn't come back.
Well, when they win 0 games, you won't be mad.
All right. So a few guys that you could be targeting. I'm just going to run through them, Randy, and then I want you to tell me your favorite 2 to 3. First, you could say Chase Edmonds, probably. Like I said earlier, he's kind of falling into the 5 to 7 range in some drafts. It depends on how heavy other teams go, of course. But then after Chase Edmonds, you've got David Johnson, Damian Harris, Nyheim Hines, Michael Carter, Trey Sermon, Javonte Williams, a nice little group of rookies there. Then you've got Raheem Mostert, who everyone's hesitant on this year, Zach Moss, I would argue Devin Singletary as well. And then A.J. Dillon would be a nice little acquisition, in my opinion. Randy, who are your favorite few that you would be targeting if you went 0 running back?
Chase is up there. Chase and Javonte are the top. And then I think it would then go probably the rookies and Damian Harris because they're all about the same ADP. But I think Kenyon Drake is a good one. I think he will be involved a good amount. I think he could be a safe workload for you. I think James Conner, who I talk shit about, could be a good one in that aspect to counteract the Chase Edmonds if he goes early. Again, you need one top and then figure it out past then. But I do think Damian Harris will be an RB2. I do think that the rookies could be RB2s, even RB1 weeks. I think Javonte for sure will be in that category. And that's only going to get better through the season and possibly through camp when he's the only running back there so far. So those Zach Moss, I think if his ADP is a value for you, I think he's one of the guys you take because where we don't believe he takes over as like a full like 60% guy, he's the only one of the 2 that I think has the chance. Like Singletary won't be that guy. He's going to be a split backfield guy. Moss, if he was given the chance, he's the only one of the 2 that could be. Besides that, you're taking like the handcuffs that have some upside every week, like Javonte, Madison, Edwards, not Javonte, Jamal Williams, sorry. Maybe Chuba Hubbard, Latavius Murray, like the stalwart guys, Tony Pollard probably this year. You're taking shots on some handcuffs, but you want the upside guys like those rookies, or maybe like you've been talking a lot about Ty Johnson that I ended up picking, or Tevin Coleman in the same backfield, or Philip Lindsay maybe taking over that role from David Johnson. David Johnson, obviously an enormous pick there as well. Even James Robinson like earlier in that category, you need to take like some safe workload guys, but you need to take high upside that you can cut right away to pick up the waiver wire stud that ends up taking over a role, because there's always someone, but it's not as high as the year that zero RB really won out, which was like 2016 when like every top running back got hurt. The zero RB obviously won by a long shot, and then if you picked up like all the young guys that took over, it was so much better. So you're gonna need one of those, but I think it's a viable ending strategy if you truly are killing the other positions.
Yeah, and that is the key. I will say you didn't mention AJ Dillon. I think AJ Dillon does get a lot of like the Jamal Williams work from last year.
So only problem, the PPR. I don't think AJ Dillon is a PPR guy necessarily. Like obviously like Nyheim Hines is going to get some running work, but he's the passing back. You take him, he's the safe guy. He's not going to break out to be an RB2, like a top running back for the team, but he's going to give you a safe 6-7 points a week with upside of like 20 something. Like I'm just saying, like if he got 4 catches a game, he's getting you 6 points. That's what
easily. I mean. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, Nyheim Hines is my favorite of these, I think, just because I have a lot of Nyheim Hines. I was on him last year, and
yes, you were.
And so I drafted him a lot. So I have.
Well, we both were because we don't like Jonathan Taylor's hands.
Still don't. He's a dump off kind of guy. He basically catches halfback tosses, and that's the only pass that he can catch. But no, I think this is a viable strategy. I will say too, if you're gonna do this strategy, you have to start to hammer high upside running backs late. So you can go heavy wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, whatever you want to do for the first 5 to 8 rounds. I could even argue that you can do this up until round 10. Jeff is doing it in Scott Fishbowl. I think we said that his RB1 is who the hell did we say?
Oh, it wasn't anything good.
Can probably argue that it's Nyheim Hines, but you got him 2 rounds later. But it's but then so deep cut guys, right? So your Gio Bernards, your Ty Johnsons, or Tevin Coleman's, like Randy said, those types of guys are required because then, like Randy said, you have the ability to cut them or they hit, and so you won. Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like a quick run through for you. Like, let's say you're at pick 10. I think if you start out with like Kelsey and let's say Adams or Diggs, whichever one.
Yeah.
So Kelsey, Adams, or Diggs. Then you come back with Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas. I'm just saying, like the guys that are going around there, Keenan Allen. And then again, you come back through in the 4th with either of those guys, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper. I mean, you're coming back in the 5th. You have a chance to get like CeeDee Lamb or Odell, but you can land any of the running backs we talked about. Even Gaskin, if he falls, I think is a decent one. But I mean, then you have you not only have the top tight end, but then you have 3 top 18 at worst wide receivers.
That's
before
crazy.
You even consider going running back. I mean, that's crazy. And then you could still get another receiver because most leagues now are either 2-2 with running backs, wide receivers, or 2-3 with wide receivers and a flex. So having 4 top end wide receivers isn't a bad idea. But you can also take one of the Kyler, Lamar, Dak at that pick and just absolutely be set at your starting positions for 5 spots and then just hammer Edmonds or Gaskins and then come back, or Javonte there if you want that upside, and then just continue for the next picks, just hammering it.
Running back after that. Yeah.
You get the safe and upside guys, take another receiver to help balance out your roster and just dominate.
Yeah. That's a good way to end it. Just dominate. definitely wise words. That's what Randy does. I sometimes dominate until I get into the playoffs, and then
But I'll tell you what, I don't dominate with 0 RB. That is not my go-to strategy. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is the disclaimer here that both of us like to go robust running back or anchor running back, which we didn't talk about, but we will get to talk about some of these other strategies in the future.
And we will, when we get closer to redraft season, we'll do mocks for them as well to highlight what we were talking about now. But obviously, redraft ADP is not all the way there right now, so it's kind of hard to fully get that.
Yeah. All right, that will do it for this episode. Again, I went live last night. Don't know how it went. Hopefully, people stopped in and asked me questions, and so I did that. Yeah, Randy won't be there. Maybe he'll watch it back and watch me sit through the 1 to 2 questions that people show up for. But I don't know what I'll do. It'll be fun. I'll do maybe a mock draft by myself just for fun. But we'll see how it went. If you guys are, again, watching this on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe. If you are listening to this in your favorite podcast app, make sure you drop us a review. If your favorite podcast app is Google or Apple, I don't think Spotify allows for reviews, but please do. That definitely helps us with search engines and whatnot. And speaking of search engines, thecutffb.com is available. We have a ton of great articles in the works right now. So not by me. I have some writer's block right now. So not by Randy. He's had writer's block since he was born.
Yeah, that's facts. I can't even argue that. And I work like 10 straight days. So
yeah, fair. All right, Randy, do you have anything to add before we bounce?
No.
All righty. Well, for Christian Williams, for Randy Hall, I am Christian Williams, and we will talk to you guys next Monday at 10:30 Eastern. Later.